North Florida is known for its waterways, wildlife, and naval bases. This green and blue wonderland is also a part of sports history. Some of the most important gymnastic meets of the 1980s have been held here. The Olympic trials of 1980 and 1984 were held in Jacksonville. Today, a new breed of gymnasts are back. 1988 Olympic bronze medalist Phoebe Mills leads an all-star entourage back to Jacksonville for the international mixed pairs. Mills will be teamed with Pat Kirksey of the University of Nebraska. He finished third at the recently held American Cup. Also from the U.S., Brandy Johnson, a 1988 Olympian that just won the 1989 American Cup. She will be teamed with Lance Ringwald. He was the youngest member of the 1988 U.S. Men's Olympic team. But the U.S. pairs will get a stiff challenge from the Soviet Union. 14-year-old Olesya Dudnik was a silver medalist at the American Cup of 1989. And that is where her partner, Vitali Marinich, won the gold. Marinich, by far one of the strongest gymnasts in the Soviet Union, will try to win again tonight. It's international mixed pairs from Jacksonville. ESPN and the United States Gymnastics Federation presents International Gymnastics. Catch the spirit. From the Jacksonville Coliseum in Jacksonville, Florida, it's the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs Championships. Today's coverage is brought to you by the good time and great taste of McDonald's. Welcome inside the Jacksonville Coliseum, where an enthusiastic and knowledgeable crowd is on hand to watch this international mixed pairs event. Hello everyone, I'm Leandra Riley. We have 17 nations on hand, and this is an event where you only are as strong as your partner. And keeping that in mind, let me introduce my partner in this event. He's expert analyst Peter Vidmar, no stranger to Jacksonville. Back in 1980 as a skinny 18-year-old, this was his first Olympic trials where he placed third. He came back in 1984, right here to Jacksonville in the 84 trials where you placed first. And of course in 84 you went on to win a gold medal in Los Angeles. Welcome Peter Vidmar, and today we have a great event on hand, and I know you're glad to be back in Jacksonville.
Yeah, now I'm a skinny 27-year-old, but it's fun to be back where I made 2 Olympic teams. It really is.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the competition that we have on hand. First and foremost, the international field is headed by the Soviet Union. Olesya Dudnik is paired with Vitali Marinich, a strong tandem from the Soviets.
Well, Dudnik is clearly fitting into the mold of great Soviet gymnasts. She's a young gymnast, and she's going to be one of their finest performers. Marinich is probably one of the finest gymnasts that the Soviets have right now. He's their rising star. He does a wild horizontal bar routine, and I really hope we see them in the finals, and I'm sure that we will.
All right, it's an interesting format where you have to score well to advance, so I do hope we do get to see him in the horizontal bar. But let's talk about some of the powerhouses for the USA. The tandem that has to be the strongest, and I'm saying this based on the American Cup finish of Brandy Johnson. She won the gold medal at the recently held American Cup. She's teamed up with Lance Ringwald, and that's a strong combination.
It sure is. Brandy proved that she's the #1 gymnast in the United States right now by taking the American Cup title. Lance is probably our finest gymnast. He's only 18 years old. We can look to him to really lead the USA into the 1992 Olympic Games.
And of course in the United States there's also the household name of Phoebe Mills. Phoebe Mills has grown 1 inch, gained 5 pounds, but it is pure muscle. Growing has been not detrimental to Phoebe Mills. She is teamed with Pat Kirksey, and that too is a strong team.
That certainly is. They could take this whole title. Phoebe could have won the American Cup. She had a fall on her best event, ironically, the balance beam. Patrick is probably the biggest surprise, I think, in the American Cup scene, because he wasn't really expected to do as well. He ended up placing third in the entire competition, and this is one of his first major international competitions. So we're off to a great start leading into the 1992 Olympics.
Okay, aside from the fact that it's 2 pairs, we also have another feature in the fact that they only compete in 3 apparatus, so really any team could be strong. We'll come back and begin competition, but first this. Welcome back, and since this is an unusual event that you're about to watch, we thought we'd explain some of the rules to you. Although gymnastics will still be scored on a scale of 1 to 10, some of the orders of the competition and how they are paired plays into effect here. 3 rounds of competition, 16 pairs will compete in round 1. The top 8 will survive to round 2, with only 3 going to round 3. Only 2 USA qualifiers may advance to round 2, and the top USA qualifying pair may go into the final round. The females will compete first, the males will compete second. The scores are combined for a total, and that determines who moves into the next round. The gymnast must utilize a different event in each round, and by that I mean if a gymnast elects to compete on the balance beam, she may not do that in the next round. And the champions are determined by the combined total scores of all 3 rounds. So what you do in the first round carries over into the second, etc. Steadiness combined with strategy is certainly the formula for success. And for strategy, I'm going to turn to you, Peter Vidmar. What is the best strategy in a meet like this?
Well, when I competed in the mixed pairs, I usually put my second best event up first, and then I would save my best performance for the very end, hoping, of course, that I could make it into the final round.
But wouldn't that backfire on you? Don't you want to do your best first to make sure you get into the second round?
Well, the problem is usually your highest scoring event can sometimes be your most difficult and risky event.
Well, we'll have to see how that pans out. Good crowd here in Jacksonville, Florida, watching the international mixed pairs. You are looking now at Bella Caroli. He is the coach of Phoebe Mills. Phoebe Mills has had to vault first because all of the women who elect to use vaulting as one of their events had to do it in the first round, obviously for equipment reasons. She was a bronze medalist on the balance beam in the 1988 Olympics, and we should add that Phoebe Mills is technically the defending champion of the mixed pairs, having won this event last year in Allentown. Of course, her partner was Kevin Davis. Phoebe Mills is now waiting for the green flag from the judges. As soon as she gets that, she will be able to vault. Again, her partner for this competition is Patrick Kirksey. And in the first round, Patrick Kirksey will be competing on the parallel bars. Now for the male gymnasts, if they elect to vault, they must do so in the second round.
Phoebe's going to be using one of these round-off entry vaults. The round-off entry vaults are the new vault that the gymnasts have been doing the last few years. But I'd say about 90% of the gymnasts now use this vault simply because you don't have to be quick and powerful to get a good score on vaulting anymore if you use the proper technique for the round-off entry vault.
And what about the men?
Well, the men started to use it briefly a few years ago, but a gymnast from the Soviet Union used it in the competition in the United States, really crashed badly, and so they banned the vault. And now it's accepted, and we actually have a gymnast from China that's doing it in the men's competition.
Or we should add that the women vault with the horse sideways, the men vault with the horse lengthwise, and that's why it was banned for the men.
Good run. There's a round off. Full twisting Sukahara. Beautiful vault. She'll score very well.
Like typical gymnastics meets, the scores will run from a scale of 1 to 10. So the judging still is the same.
Now she's not running extremely fast because you don't have to have a very quick run going into the round off entry vault. There's the round off. Does a flip flop onto the horse. Does a Sukahara with a full twist. Takes a hop. That'll be a little deduction. All in all, she has very good technique, gets a lot of height, gets good distance, should get a good score.
Although you said it covers power, it seems to me the risk element in this vault is still tremendously high. You make a mistake and you really wipe out in a serious way.
There is a great deal of risk, but now there are some safety factors added onto it. You have to realize the board was never designed for someone to hit it going backwards. You'll see a mat surrounding the board now. Excellent call.
Stuck it.
That's the one that we know.
What the judges do is they'll turn in their scores, they'll average the total for the first vault, and then she'll vault a second time, as you just saw, and they'll turn in their scores for the second vault, and it is only the higher of the 2 vaults that count. That is not the case with the men when they vault. They only get to vault once, and it counts whether it's good or bad.
We used to complain about that. We say it wasn't fair, but just put some added pressure on.
Now we can look at her partner, Patrick Kirksey. He is a junior at Nebraska.
Patrick was a key player in Nebraska's NCAA championship last year. He was only a sophomore, and no one really heard a lot about him, and he had a really tough meet. Made no mistakes.
Patrick is coached by Francis Allen and Jim Howard.
There's a peach to a straddle cut, swing up to a handstand. Patrick is a big gymnast. It's a back toss right to a handstand. Another back toss. That's a Healy twirl, kind of a new skill recently. 2 in a row, very, very difficult. There's a front uprise, straddle cut to an L. Now, if you have a strong stomach, this actually becomes a rest position as you sit in that L. presses up to a handstand and gets ready for his dismount.
I'm glad you qualified that with a strong stomach.
And double back, good landing.
I don't exactly go home and rest in an L position myself. Some young fans on hand as a 5'10" Patrick Kirksey dismounts.
It'll be just a few moments until these scores are.
Now here's the Healy twirls. These are there's a skill called a Diamidov that was very popular a few years ago. It's a very difficult one, and this is basically a reverse Diamidov. From a handstand into a full turn, one arm on the bar, does it again, and when you miss that bar, boy, it's a long drop down to the bottom. Patrick did a very good dismount, took a little step on the end. That's going to clearly be about a 1/10 of a point deduction, but it's nice and solid. Gets a good tuck, solid landing, takes a little step back.
Let's take another look at Phoebe Mills' second attempt at vaulting, and this is one we feel that will get the higher score.
It was an excellent vault. You notice the mat surrounding the board. That's a safety device. It's new. Her legs are slightly apart at the beginning, but it's just an excellent vault, and she zeroes in just right there in the landing.
And we've just heard that her vaulting score is 9.9, but as we said, it is a combined score that matters. So while she gets a crowd applause from her partner, Pat Kirksey, it's what he does that will now matter.
And I'll tell you, consistency is the name of the game here. If you make a little mistake, you are not going to make it into the next round.
He received a 9.50.
13 years old, is from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. This is Stella O'Mare.
And my quick math tells me that that's worth 19.4. So 19.4 for Mills and Kirksey, setting a pretty high standard by which the others must compete against. We'll be back with more, but first, these messages. Welcome back. Our coverage of the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs continues from Jacksonville, Florida. I'm Leandra Riley, along with Peter Vidmar. And 19.4, that's the combined score of Phoebe Mills and Pat Kirksey. But right now we are going to move internationally. Our young lady from Hungary, Henriette Onodi, is ready to compete on the uneven parallel bars. Now she's just 4 feet 6 inches tall. The first time you saw her on gymnastics in the United States was at the 1987 American Cup, where she was just 4 feet tall and 56 pounds. Now she's grown to a whopping 4'6" and 66 pounds. She is little, even by gymnastic standards.
You know, Leander, earlier we talked about how Phoebe Mills had grown so much. I mean, now she's 5'1",
Right.
and that's a giant almost in women's gymnastics, especially when you look at gymnasts like Onodi. Beautiful free hip, full turn. To the high bar. And a beautiful Ginger. Didn't get a lot of height, but very nice form. There's a Jaeger salto, down to the low bar, kip to a handstand. Now she keeps up to get ready for her last series of swings before her dismount. There's a giant full turn, and double tuck. Beautiful routine.
Now she barely has to bend between the bars.
14 years old.
But I think you pointed out something interesting about no height. She is so little that she doesn't have the strength, really, to get some rebound and some power, some explosiveness off the uneven parallel bars.
You're right. See, those bars have a certain bend, a certain give to them, and there's an optimum weight for someone swinging on uneven bars to get a good bounce, but she can barely make the bars bend at all.
This is her partner. He, too, is from Hungary, Zsolt Horvat, obviously on the pommel horse.
You wonder, why would anybody want to start on pommel horse? This is like balance beam for the girls. Not one girl in this competition is starting out on beam, and here he is on pommel horse. But he comes from a long tradition of great pommel horsemen from Hungary, and they just look at this as just any other event. He's doing very, very well. At the very beginning, he did some unique flares to a handstand across the horse.
He is 20 years old and has been on his national team for 3 years.
Nice flow work at the end, right up to a handstand. That should score well.
Horvat is a 1988 Olympian, finishing 28th in the all-around.
And here's his last sequence. He does the flares, traveling down to the end of the horse, loops around into one more flare and takes it right up to a handstand. This is pretty much the standard dismount on pommel horse. If you don't go to a handstand, you're not doing the big tricks.
Let's go back to his partner, Henriette Onodi.
Now here's one of her release moves. She kips through up to the high bar. Kip to a handstand, And right there, that's a very, very difficult front giant. She's a pirouette into a full twisting giant. And now, here's her dismount, immediately into a double tuck. Zeroes in on the landing. Just a little hop.
And for that routine, she received a 9.825. Remember, Phoebe Mills received a 9.9 on her first vault. So she's keeping right up with Phoebe Mills on her end of things. Pat Kirksey received a 9.5 for his parallel bar routine, and that's really the score that Zsolt Horvat has to outdo in the pommel horse, because the combined total that they're trying to surpass is 19.40. However, all they really want to do is get into the second round, and it is a top 8 teams that will advance.
I'll tell you, Zsolt Horvat is not a giant, but standing next to Onodi, he sure does look like one.
5 feet 9.5 inches tall he is. Well, she is just 4 feet 6 inches. Zsolt Horvat speaks English rather fluently. He learned it in school. He is the best gymnast in Hungary right now, finishing first in the all-around at the Hungarian National Championships in 1988. So this is really kind of a changing of the guard for all the teams, not just the United States, in terms of preparation for the 1992 games in Barcelona. Again, her score 9.825. We are waiting for his score on the pommel horse. And the judges are having a conversation about the numbers and making some final adjustments. Tense moments for these young people. Again, he is 20 years of age. She is 14 years of age. And there you see the international judging table. And when you talk about a conference among international judges, it is very, very difficult with interpreters trying to speak not only a foreign language, but to speak gymnastics and the very technical terms that are involved.
It is, in fact, many times you'll see the same interpreter traveling with the delegations because they just have to know the gymnastics lingo.
Right. We understand that his score is 9.40, giving them a total of 19.225. And currently that puts them in second place behind Phoebe Mills and Pat Kirksey. And we are going to continue on right now with what we believe may be the strongest tandem in this competition, Brandy Johnson. At the recently held McDonald's American Cup, this young lady won the gold medal. Just 15 years of age, 4 feet 11 inches tall.
Here's one of the main factors why she won. This is the vault. Certainly her best event. A beautiful ground-off entry, full twisting layout Sukahara, perfect landing. She's clearly one of the finest vaulters in the world. She was 5th in Seoul at the Olympics. Had a great shot at winning a medal. There's a round off. Back handspring onto the horse. Gets a great lift off the horse. A lot of height, good distance, and just nails that landing. She has a lot of power. She can do the regular entry round off, full twisting Sukahara vault. Just an incredible vault. Either way, she's one of the best vaulters in the world. She can do just about any vault.
I noticed her hand placement was on the vaulting board side of the horse. Is that the ideal placement, or do you want them on top of the horse more? Or does it depend really on what you're throwing?
Well, it depends on what you're throwing. It depends on the power you have. She has so much power, she can afford to hit her hands low on the horse because it gets her really high. If you don't have a lot of power, you're going to have to be more on top of the horse because you'd end up kind of falling off the horse as opposed to pushing off of the horse.
Again, the female gymnasts are allowed to execute 2 vaults. The 2 vaults are scored separately. Only the higher one will count.
See, there's a totally different vault, different family of vault. Handspring pipe front with a half turn. Took a hop. She'll get a higher score for the first one. It really didn't matter because her first vault was fine. She gets a great score for that.
She gets a congratulatory pat from her coach, Kevin Brown. Now she is teamed with a man named Lance Ringwald. Lance competes for Gold Cup Gymnastics. And earlier we had a chance to speak with Lance about being teamed not only with Brandy Johnson, the gold medalist, but about his strategy in determining his events.
Well, we'll start with the last event first. I think it's really important, especially in this elimination competition, to end on your best event, or a very strong event at least. And high bar is very consistent, usually one of my strongest events. And as far as starting parallel bars, even if I have a little trouble, I think I'm okay. But P-bars can be my strongest event at times. And then vaulting, we stuck in the middle because it's pretty consistent and a pretty decent score.
And he mounts right away to a planche. Very, very difficult. Takes a lot of power. There's a giant right to a handstand. Front uprise to the center of the bars into a back stitz and settles right into a handstand. There's a back toss. Takes a little step that's going to cost him about a 10th or 2. And a Diamidov. Front uprise. Here's a Stutz to a handstand. Another Stutz. Here's a dismount, a double pike. Oh, big step. That's going to cost him quite a bit.
And that might open the door for Phoebe Mills and Cap Kirksey to be the top contenders, depending on how much they deduct for that major step at the end. Now, when you have a major flaw like that, do they take into account the degree of difficulty on the dismount?
They certainly do, but it's an automatic deduction. If you take one step, it's a 1/10 of a point. You take 2 steps, it's 2/10 of a point. And here's his dismount. It's a double pike. He falls back on the bars a little bit, so he over-rotates, and he's really in a deep squat. He almost landed on his rear end. That could have been even a much bigger deduction. Lance really saved it.
Again, he is paired with Brandy Johnson. We're going to take another look at her second vault.
Now, the second vault is totally different. You know, Brandy can pick and choose and do whatever she wants. Here's a handspring, piked front with a half turn, opens up very, very well, but it has almost too much rotation. Takes a big hop backwards.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have the scores for Brandy Johnson and Lance Ringwald. Stay with us here in Jacksonville, Florida. McDonald's International Mixed Pairs continues now. We promised you the score for Brandy Johnson and Lance Ringwald. Their combined total is 19.225, with Brandy Johnson getting a 9.875 for her vault, Lance receiving a 9.35 for his performance on the parallel bars. That's good enough to put them in a tie for third place at this juncture. Of course, there are several more pairs still to compete, and one of the tougher pairs to compete is the tandem that's about to begin right now. From the Soviet Union, it's Olesya Dudnik and Vitali Marinich. The warm-ups are concluding at the vaulting horse, so that's the clue that Dudnik will be vaulting in this first round. Her partner, Marinich, will be going on the still rings as soon as the warm-ups are concluded. Again, the women must compete first, and for those of you just joining us, it's combined scores that advance you into the next round. There are 16 pairs in round 1, 8 pairs will compete in round 2, with only 3 surviving to the third and final round.
And we are now ready to resume our
You'll notice that almost every girl starts with vault. And the reason they do is that it's a very secure event, and you can almost guarantee a good score, and you have 2 chances to do it. When I competed, I used to like to start on rings because it was a real tough event. I'm surprised that not more male gymnasts are doing rings.
Olesya Dudnik, 5 feet tall, 86 pounds. She's from Kirovgrad. She's been in the sport for a little over 8 years.
Once again, another round-off entry vault. Nicolae Sukahara. The other name for that vault is the Yurchenko, from the Soviet gymnast that first did it. I saw her do it for the first time at the World Cup in 1982. Big surprise when we saw it.
She, by the way, was a silver medalist in the American Cup this past weekend.
Dudnik doesn't have as much power as Brandy Johnson on this vault. She's very good technically, but just doesn't have that sheer block off the horse.
In the 1988 People's Republic of Korea friendship competition, she finished first on the balance beam and first in floor exercise. Should she survive to the next rounds, those are her next 2 events, floor X and balance beam. Last year, she was the junior champion of the Soviet Union.
And she does the exact same vault, a lot better as well. Perfect maneuver.
And that certainly is the beauty of doing 2 vaults. You can make adjustments and improve.
He's 18 years old.
Men's gymnastics, it's all or nothing. You only have 1 chance.
Well, actually, it's that way with all the other events. You don't get 2 chances at beam or bars or any of it. So absolutely, it is a unique apparatus for the women. All right, Vitali Marinich, gold medal in the rings.
Marinich was groomed through the European Junior Championships. So you always see the top young Soviet gymnasts competing in the Junior European Championships. So if you want to know who's going to make it in the future, just watch that competition. He did very, very well in that meet.
Excellent body for a gymnast, too. He's just 5 feet 4.5 inches tall and 117 pounds, which is hard to believe because on his bio sheet, he wrote down that he likes ice cream, pizza, and spaghetti. Hardly the diet of that washboard stomach.
Oh, you got a carbo load before these events. Incredible strength sequence, right to an iron cross. Back up rise to a plant. This is just loaded with strength. That skill's called a Li Ning, first and after the famous Chinese gymnast Li Ning a few years ago. Marinich presses to a handstand. Does what's called a Yamawaki. Really seen in full for the first time at the Olympics in 1984. There's a giant to a handstand. That's a required move. You have to go from a handstand to a handstand somewhere in the performance. And a double layout dismount.
Fine performance, and this is going to be a tough tandem to beat. Vitali Marinich and Olesya Dudnik from the Soviet Union.
The dismount that Marinich does is pretty much the standard dismount on rings. Most of the gymnasts dismount with a double layout because it's a difficult D-level skill, highest level of difficulty, and it's easy to land.
We'll take a look at the second vault of Olesya Dudnik.
She knew she had to do a better one, and she really zeroed in on it this time. Good lift off the horse. A real crisp turn on the full twist. Plenty of time to see the ground, and lands perfectly.
They did find a flaw in that vault, however. Instead of a perfect 10, she received a 9.9, which in first round scores would tie her with Phoebe Mills. However, it's how she and her partner do. So we are waiting for the score for his performance. 19.50 is the combined score. His individual score for the ring was 9.6. So 19.5 catapults them into first place. We are moving now back to the vault where Romania is represented by Isabella Lacatus. Lacatus, born in 1976. She was only 12 years old. Hard to think when you put that in perspective of Romanian gymnastics that Nadia Comaneci was just coming on the scene then, and this girl was just being born.
Oh, it's incredible. You know, there really is a changing of the guard right now. They're purposely putting these really young gymnasts in here because she'll be 16 years old in the 1992 Olympic Games, just barely qualifying in age to compete there.
You must be 15 for the women to compete in international gymnastics. Lacatus is 4 feet 6 inches tall, another giant.
And once again, a round-off entry vault. Ooh, she really must have slipped her hand on that horse. She got no lift off the horse. Of course, fortunately, she has one more chance. It seemed to me that as her hand hit the horse, it just slipped and she didn't get any lift.
Well, she looked loose to me going into that. Her body posture before her hand even touched the horse, her knees were bent, and she just looked soft instead of...
She also twisted very, very soon off the horse. She needs to establish that lift first. Notice that as her hands hit the horse, right away she's twisting.
A couple of things led into that. I didn't think her run was particularly powerful, so she does get a second chance. This is her first international competition. Kind of a testament to that is the fact that she brought her music, which is required on cassette. She brought it on a reel-to-reel tape. She's new on the international scene and having to learn very quickly. The 1988 junior champion of Romania, Isabella Lacatus.
Here she goes again. Much, much better. She just needs to get more power. She's only 12 years old. As she develops, she'll be able to get that vault well under her belt.
And in a vault like that, you can really see where upper body strength is so important. She just needs a little bit more muscle all the way around.
Yeah, and sometimes you can work as hard as you can, but you just need a few more years. Maturity and age can do it to you to give you that extra strength.
But experience will certainly play a factor into that. She's just 12 years of age. This is certainly a valuable experience for her. Now she is teamed with Nicolae Bejenaru. He is 20 years of age. And oddly enough for this man, the Olympics were his first major competition.
And I'll tell you, I know how he feels. My very first competition that I wore a USA on my chest was the World Gymnastics Championships. And boy, you are nervous out there. He is a very solid gymnast. He mounted with a beautiful full-in pike into a very nice second tumbling pass. It's a handspring front flip, bounder front flip. Very sure on his feet.
Let me elaborate on something that you said. You started off at the World Championships. This man started off at the Olympics. The reason that happens is you qualify for international teams through trials. And maybe you qualified the year before in 13th place or 15th place. And finally, it's your turn to really make the team. And shazam, the next big international meet is the Olympics or the World Championships. And that's how that happens. It isn't some crazy coach who says, hey, Pete, we want to put you in the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I was 13th in the United States at the first trials, and the second one I moved up to 6th place, put me on the team. I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. It's very solid. Beautiful double back dismount. Perfect landing. He'll get a very good score on that. Now here's his second tumbling pass. It's a front flip, walk out, into a round off, back handspring, a layout with a 1.5 twist immediately into a punch front. Very, very difficult. That's a D-level skill, the highest level of difficulty. And here's his last tumbling pass. It's a very good round off back handspring, double back flip. Fairly standard dismount, but he does it quite well. His knees are close and tight together.
The women's score for Isabella
Perfect landing.
of Romania, 9.5.
Isabella Lacatus did much better on her second vault, obviously, than her first, because she really wiped out.
You know, as we were talking about the lack of height, for example, and weight on uneven bars, the same is true on vaulting. It needs a lot of weight in order to get that board down. And it's really hard to get a lot of lift off that board if you don't weigh very much.
All right, if you don't push it down, it doesn't send you back up. And for that vault, she received a 9.55. That's her half of the combined score of 19.05. His half is 9.50. So the 9.5 and the 9.55 add up to 19.05. We'll be back with more mixed pairs after this. Welcome back to the McDonald's International Gymnastics Mixed Pairs. Round 1 has concluded, and while they tally the scores to determine the 8 teams to move back into round 2, we thought you'd like to meet Brandy Johnson, who has quietly been surprising the gymnastics world since she broke onto the scene 8 years ago. Frequently in the shadows of Phoebe Mills, it's time we introduced you to America's premier female gymnast. The 1989 American Cup was a first-place triumph in the all-around event for Brandy Johnson. Along the way, she picked up gold medals on the uneven parallel bars and in the floor exercise event. Not one to bask in the glory of achievements, this 15-year-old Floridian headed right back to the gym in preparation for this mixed pairs event and other international meets of 1989. Johnson trains at Altamont Springs. Her coach is Kevin Brown. This unassuming powerhouse posted the best American finish at the 1988 Olympics with her 10th place in the all-around. An experience that she and her mom relive with
I was ready to
fondness.
get back home after a while there.
4 years we talked about it, but gosh, you know, just being there, it was really like a dream.
That plane trip was too long.
Too long? We enjoyed our trip. Of course, you know, Daddy had his birthday, and we had a party, so it was fun. We had the Taekwondo exhibition team. They were a lot of fun.
Yeah, the boxing team was fun because we got them to color. We had coloring books and they colored with us.
Oh, fun.
It was fun.
Brandy is trying to keep her international life in balance with life as a typical American teenager. She is in the 10th grade. Studies are a combination of classes, correspondence, and tutors, and in typical teenager fashion, the telephone plays a big part in her happiness.
Hello. Hi. Fine. I just got back from a meet. The American Cup. Yeah. I got first. Thanks. What have you been up to? My friends call a lot, and we do things on the weekends sometimes, but most of my friends are usually from the gym, so we're all pretty close. And I have one of my friends that comes up and visits me from Fort Myers a lot. I like dancing music. I like to go to a dance club we have here in town. It's called Park Avenue. I like to dance a lot.
After 4.5 years with Coach Brown, Brandy trained just before the 1980 Olympics with Bella Caroli in Houston. Hope, sickness, and loyalty brought her back after just 4 months.
Mr. Brown and I work really well together. He's an excellent coach. He knows exactly how to motivate me, and we work really well together, so we can go really far, I think. I was very glad to be back with Mr. Brown. We work so well together, and we set our goals, and we reach most of them together.
And it is a very difficult thing to do, to choose coaches, to go back to an original coach and not step on egos. And Brandy Johnson has managed to do just that. She's very happy. We'll be back with more in a moment. Welcome back. Brandy Johnson and Lance Ringwald finished up in a tie for 6th place and as such become the 3rd team comprised of 2 Americans to advance to the 2nd round. Since the rule states that only 2 USA pairs may advance, Brandy and Lance, unfortunately, have been eliminated, but did finish technically in the top 6. Let's take a look at the USA tandem that will replace them. First, on the women's side, it is Shelley Stack.
Shelley had a great vault. She got a 9.8 for another round-off entry, layout Sukahara with a full twist. She took a little step at the end, but it was nice and crisp. Gets good lift off the board and into a very crisp twist. Sees the ground nice and early, takes a little step.
She is teamed with Wes Suter, who's on the floor.
Wes was an '88 Olympian and was a former NCAA all-around champion. Floor exercise is one of his best events. He started out on floor, got a good score, dismounting here with a double back flip. Takes a little step at the end, but it was a very fine performance, and that launched him into the next round.
And that gave them a combined score of 19.4, which actually tied them with Phoebe Mills and Pat Kirksey for 3rd place. Now, one of the other standout performances, and you'll see him in the final round, but you won't see this routine. That's why we're recording it for you now. Look at the P-bar set by Li Jing.
Now, this is Li Jing of China, similar to the name Li Ning, but a different gymnast. Incredible skill, a 1.5 forward somersault, catching on the back side of his arms on the bars. You could see the look on his face when he hit those bars.
And that stellar performance by Li Jing helped set up these results. His team, he's paired with Wendy Bruce, finished in 2nd behind the Soviet Union, followed by a tie by the USA's Phoebe Mills, Patrick Kirksey, Shelley Stack, and Wes Suter for 3rd place. The 2nd panel shows a USA and Puerto Rico tandem of Bangader and Tort finishing 5th. Brandy Johnson and Lance Ringwald are eliminated by virtue of the 2 USA rule, followed by Onodi, Horvat, Mermet, and Kauterman. Now these are the teams that will advance. Rounding out the rest of the 1st round, it is Canada, Romania, and Cuba. We will be back with the 2nd round, but first we have these messages. Stay with us here in Jacksonville, Florida, where the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs continues. Welcome back to Jacksonville, Florida. I'm Leander Riley, along with Peter Vidmar. The McDonald's International Mixed Pairs is truly mixed in our next tandem. In some cases where representation from a country could not allow 2 athletes to compete, I guess you could say marriages were made by the United States Gymnastics Federation. We have an international tandem of Wendy Bruce from the United States. She is teamed with Li Jing from China. And anytime you have truly a mixed combination, they are from neither country, which is why you will see more USA athletes. They are not deemed USA athletes when they are teamed with a partner from another country. So Wendy Bruce will compete now on the uneven parallel bars.
Wendy is a teammate of Brandy Johnson's at Alamo Springs at Brown's Gymnastics. There's a beautiful high reverse hack. She's got a lot of power on her giants. There's a Jaeger, a front salto, down to the low bar. Shoot through, back up to the high bar. Do some last series of swings before her dismount. There's a giant. A lot of power on that giant. Very high double bar. Good routine.
Now in the 1st round, she vaulted and got a 9.725. This round, obviously, she opted for the uneven parallel bars. And talk about putting the pressure on yourself. In the 3rd round, she's opted for the balance beam. Not only do you have to hit a tough event, but when the money counts.
Must be your best event.
Again, she is paired with Li Jing. He is from the People's Republic of China. In the 1st round, you saw him on the parallel bars doing those saltos between the bars. In this round, he has opted to execute the vault. Now, the men were restricted to vaulting only in the 2nd round, and that was for equipment purposes. So anybody who opts to vault must do so in this rotation.
And this is an unusual vault. We've been talking for so many years about the women doing the round-off entry vault. Li Jing is one of the first men I have ever seen even try the round-off entry vault. It's much more difficult because the course is lengthwise. Here it is. Round-off on, layout, full twist, beautiful vault. Excellent. It's much more difficult than in women's gymnastics because you have to place your hands on a very, very narrow piece of horse.
But then to play devil's advocate, he's got the spring coming off the top because of that muscle mass and power, so it's a little bit easier in men's gymnastics.
It is, no question. I'll tell you what, I'm never going to do it.
Okay.
But Alexander Tikhonkin of the Soviet Union tried it once and really had a bad crash, and so they were concerned about men doing this vault. But you can see he did extremely well, a lot of height, and he's so powerful.
You're right, there is an inherent danger doing this vault because it is lengthwise. Now let's go back over to the high bar and take another look at Wendy Bruce, Li Jing's partner.
Beautiful front flip. Kips up to a handstand, carried over the low bar. Now here's her dismount. She's got a very nice tap on the bottom of her giant swing. Very, very good.
9.65.
And the score for Wendy Bruce was 9.625 on uneven parallel bars. Li Jing received for his vault a 9.65. Their combined total is 19.325 for that rotation, giving them an overall total of 38.75, and that puts them out in front.
Boy, if they keep this going the way they are, they could be the first mixed pairs to win this event.
All right, we're going to continue with our coverage of the mixed pairs. You are looking now at Shelley Stack, a 1988 Olympian. She is teamed with Wes Suter, and she too is about to compete on the uneven parallel bars. Shelley Stack from Birmingham, Alabama. Shelley is also coached by Bella Caroli.
Shelley's a very quick gymnast. There's a reverse hecht. Glide kip over the low bar. A fairly standard transition back up to the high bar. Full twisting giant over the top. Another giant. Double back. Perfect landing.
Shelley Stack, 15 years old, born in Endicott, New York. Now lives in Houston, Texas, training with Bella Caroli.
Wendy Bruce should have been 38.70, not 37.70.
Looking at Wes Suter. He was on floor exercise in the first round, and in this round, he's on the parallel bars. He too is a tall gymnast, 5 feet 10 inches tall. But height isn't that much of a factor on the P-bars as it is on the still rings.
Actually, parallel bars can help the taller gymnast. A former Nebraska gymnast, Phil Cahoy, was just excellent on parallel bars. Nice fluid swing. Beautiful Diamidov. There's a front uprise. Here's a Healy twirl. Right away into a front toss, straddle cut L.
Wendy Bruce and Li Jing's total was 38.70. That puts them into first place as you watch Wes Suter.
There's a Stutz and a double back. Nice little hop, good dismount, little hop. It's a nice routine altogether.
Last year, Wes Suter was voted 1988 Athlete of the Year by his teammates, and he was also a winner of the coveted Nissen Award.
And of course, it was on the
Now this is that Healy twirl. Very, very difficult blind move. You just don't know where your hand is till it hits the bar. Right into a front toss, a front flip between the bars into a straddle cut right to an L. Now here's his dismount. It's a double tuck, fairly standard parallel bar dismount. Good landing, takes a little hop, but he had control over it. It'll be just a small deduction, probably about 1/10 of a point.
Let's take another look at Shelley Stack, his partner on the uneven parallel bars.
And here's Shelley's dismount, a very high double back, and she zeroes in on that landing.
And zeroes in on a 9.75, her individual score. Again, that's only 1/4 of their total. His score is another 1/4, and the 2 scores they received in the first round is the first half of their score. Everything carries over. Right now, the score they would like to beat is a combined total of 38.70, which is what Wendy Bruce and Li Jing have after 2 rounds. Stella Ume and Lauren Bobkin at 37.55 are currently in second, followed by Onodi and Horvat of Hungary with 38.075. So we've received Shelley Stack's score of 9.75. Wes Suter received a 9.50. In a moment, we'll have on the screen for you the totals. And again, only 3 will advance. There's the total, 38.65. That puts them in second place after 4 pairs, but we still have 4 to go. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are now going to watch the pair from the Soviet Union, the top qualifiers into this final round. They had a lead by approximately .075. It will be combined with what their scores are for this second round. We are looking at Olesya Dudnik. Her second event is the floor exercise, while her partner Marinich will compete on the pommel horse. At the Korea Friendship Competition, she finished first in floor exercise.
She mounts with a beautiful full twisting double backflip. The Soviet women are real masters at blending the appropriate amount of dance and tumbling, and they dance so well.
I think it's personified by just watching their toe point and extension. Every time her leg is in the air, it is pointed.
Incredible tumbling pass.
Back up
1.5
toes.
twist into a double full punch front. The one thing about the Soviet gymnasts is they just are so well-rounded. You really can't find weaknesses. With many of the other athletes, you can say, well, gee, they're really powerful in one part, but they've got a little weakness here. You just can't pinpoint a weakness in the Soviet gymnasts.
That leg extension. Crowd is applauding.
Final tumbling pass, around off back handspring. Triple twist at the end of a routine. Very difficult.
Now, at what point does a twisting tumbling move become not a twist when you land sideways? Judges have to watch if you get all the way around. That's true. As we shift now over to the pommel horse for her partner, Vitali Marinich.
You could say that was a layout with 2 7/8 twists, but technically we'll just call it the triple fault. Marinich is just excellent on pommel horse. Very difficult routine. He starts with very extended loops traveling across the horse, on and off the pommels. Here's a flare sequence. In flare, he travels to the center of the horse. Ooh, he hit his leg on the pommel. It just stopped him cold.
Major break. And this might keep them from going into the third round.
This will most certainly keep them from going into the third round. There's a very difficult spindle sequence.
They did have a .075 advantage going into this round.
Yes,
But it won't be enough to overtake that.
Now that'll be at least a half a point deduction. Probably more.
Very dejected. Vitali Marinich.
That routine was packed full of difficulty. You know, when you catch your foot on that horse, there's just nothing you can do about it. He's doing a flare sequence in spindle, turning in the opposite direction of his swing, and there he catches his foot, just slows him down. There's his dismount, a flare up to a handstand pirouette. Of course, he would have gone maybe 9-8, 9-9. And now he's going to have to settle for a much lower score.
What could have been. Now, here's a triple twist that I was speaking of that you said might have been 2 7/8. Watch her feet on the landing.
Well, the nice thing about it is that she really zeroes in on the landing. She knows that even if she doesn't make the full, complete twist, she's in line to land straight.
Look at that. She
I mean,
spun that all the way
if you look
around.
at where her feet were, it was really only about 2.5 twists.
Yes. She jumped out of it very quickly. They are not a happy couple. There is going to be a conference on her score. His score was posted at 8.95, and that will knock them out of the running. And I'm wondering if the conference on the women's score centers around that triple twist.
It could.
Of course, we will never know. They never divulge at the end of the meet what the conference is about.
They could be discussing which restaurant to go to after the competition, but I doubt that very much.
I don't think they'd be doing that in the middle of the Soviet performers, especially when you've got 6 different languages out there.
The score for Olesya 9.65.
Now it appears they are announcing that 9.65 is her score. So I would gather that that triple wasn't quite tallied as a triple. 38.10 their combined total. And right now that is good enough for 3rd place, but yet to come, Phoebe Mills and Pat Kirksey. Phoebe Mills also competing on the floor exercise event. Phoebe is still coached by Bella Caroli. At the Seoul Games, she finished with a bronze on the balance beam and 15th in the all-around.
Here's her first tumbling pass. Run off big handspring. Full twisting, pike double back. Good solid landing.
She was way up there, too.
Oh, way up there. You know, she's changed her music. It's not the cute little pixie type of music because Phoebe's changed. She's grown a lot, and so her music is much more mature.
I was talking with Bella before the meet, and I said, honestly, Bella, in your heart, do you think she's going to stay around until 1992? And he said, certainly it's up to her, but if anybody has the dedication out of all the gymnasts he's coached, she's got the most dedication to stick around.
No question. Beautiful double pike. What's really impressed me the most about Phoebe over the years is that she's always in phenomenal shape. She's just in great physical condition.
We said in the beginning that she's grown 1 inch, put on 5 pounds, and of course that's Mother Nature taking her course. She's maturing now, she's 16 years old, but it's all muscle. Look how strong her upper body is. I think growing up might be an advantage to her, where other women, it's usually a disadvantage.
It could. Usually the strength to weight ratio becomes much more difficult for the girls as they mature into womanhood. And the men tend to reach a much better peak after they physically mature. Double back dismount. Not too much struggling there for Phoebe.
Crowd favorite, Phoebe Mills.
Phoebe Mills' partner like that, so he's going to do floor exercise now.
Bella Caroli giving her a hug. Her partner, Patrick
Please welcome our
Kirksey,
20-year-old
also
from
competing on the
University of
floor
Nebraska,
exercise event.
Pat Kirksey.
He is from Tucker, Georgia, 5 feet 10 inches tall. Currently lives in Lincoln because he competes at the University of Nebraska, where he's coached by Francis Allen and Jim Howard.
Now 5'10" is big for a gymnast, but he's very, very powerful, and that strength really helps him. And when you use these springs that are underneath that floor, you can really use them to your advantage when you're bigger. You can get a good bounce off the floor. Very high, open tuck, full twisting double back. He did not use his hands to grab his legs. That shows excellent technique in his tumbling. Front foot walkout handspring, bounder handspring, and that's a layout, full twisting front flip. It's a full twisting straddle side flip. This is the required press to a handstand. Must hold it for at least 2 seconds. Once again, when you have a good handstand, for example, you can make a press a rest position.
What a straddle jump that was.
There's a Y scale.
Held that very well.
A little breath before the dismount. Round off back handspring, double tuck. Little step, but that was a very solid routine.
But is it solid enough to overtake third place, which is currently held by the Soviet Union at 38.1?
I'm really impressed with this first tumbling pass. He does a full twisting double back flip. He doesn't use his hands to grab his legs at all. It shows excellent technique because he gets a good lift off the ground, and everything kind of takes care of itself while he's in the air.
And he's so long. The temptation is there to grab your legs and
Sure.
whip it around.
His last pass was the fairly standard dismount that they use, which is a double back flip. He does it quite well. Good lift with his arms. Just takes a little step backwards.
And the score for Patrick Kirksey is now being posted.
This is Phoebe Mills. She also was on the floor exercise event.
And
Now Phoebe does the same pass as Patrick, except that she uses her hands to grab her legs, and she does it in the pike position, meaning she keeps her legs straight. You see her grab her legs to pull them around. It's much more difficult in the pike position. Now our last tumbling pass.
This concludes competition in round 2. Our athletes will now prepare for the 3rd round.
Round off, back handspring, double pike. It kind of goes into it like a tuck, and then she straightened her legs at the end.
While our athletes are preparing, ladies and gentlemen, we have another
Combined total 38.8 because they received a 9.85 and 9.5 respectively for their individual scores. They're in first. The 3rd round is up ahead.
yesterday from an international meet in France. Please welcome Julia Rowell.
Welcome back to our third and final round of the mixed pairs event in Jacksonville, Florida. The standings after 2 rounds show Phoebe Mills and Patrick Kirksey are our top qualifiers, followed by Wendy Bruce and Li Jing. Now, Shelley Stack and Wes Suter technically finished third, but since only one All-USA tandem can advance to the third and final round, that opened the door for the Soviet Union. Dudnik and Marinich will now compete in the third and final round, as Stack and Suter must be retired by the USA rule. Let's go right ahead. Now the draw has been made, and the first pair to compete will be Phoebe Mills and Patrick Kirksey, and the very gutsy Phoebe Mills will compete on the balance beam, and intentionally so. The American Cup, which was held just a few days ago, saw her fall off this event and actually lose the cup because of it. She wants to come right back and prove that that was a fluke. Beam is a strong event for her, she says.
Well, she won the bronze medal on balance beam in the Olympics, so it clearly is her best event. I'll tell you, this is an important routine for her, because if she can just do an excellent routine here, beautiful back handspring, back layout, back layout. That's what she fell off on in the American Cup. She made it nice and solid this time. If she can do a good routine here, she's right back on track. She's got all the confidence she needs going into the next round of competitions in the coming months.
And I talked with her about being nervous, and she said, sure, she gets nervous for all of her events, but she tries to direct that nervousness into a positive performance. Instead of letting it rattle her, she steers that energy into a fine performance. A slight bobble there.
Little bobble. That's important. You have to be nervous. If you're not nervous, it means you're not placing importance on what you're doing. It's okay and it's important to be nervous. You just have to, as you said, channel the energy to the right places. She's still right on target, though.
I like this move.
She seems quite sure of herself.
Getting ready for a dismount.
There's a round off. Double tuck. Great landing. Back on track.
And she puts the pressure on the Soviet Union and the international tandem of Bruce and Jing. Bella Caroli congratulating her. Bella Caroli nursing a fractured wrist. He fell off a ladder at home a couple of months ago and shattered the bone in something like 60 places, some incredible number. Had to undergo lots of surgery.
Yeah.
And that's why you're not seeing him slam his gymnasts on the back.
Yeah, the girls say he sticks both hands out to spot, but the last second he pulls one of them back.
The weak one. He's in a lot of pain with that sore wrist. So it's calmed Bella down in the back thumping department. Getting back to the mixed pairs, as you look at Bella, it's his right hand, incidentally, that he injured. And he is right-handed. Patrick Kirksey now ready to compete in his final event, which is the pommel horse. And the pressure's actually been put on him because his partner just performed a very solid routine.
That's right, he knows that with a good performance here, they could win this. Now, pommel horse hasn't typically been Patrick's best event, but he's very, very solid now. This is a tough routine. Oh,
form break there.
It's okay, he's staying tough. Little bobble, now he's
slipped off. And a lot of hearts just sank in the Jacksonville Coliseum. Oh.
Still able to muster a smile, though.
Phoebe saying to herself, it was you, not me.
Well, she smiled because Patrick smiled first. Now it's tough. He's got to get back up, finish this routine. Certainly won't be the score that would give them the top spot, but based on a few bobbles, you never know. We still have 2 more teams that could make little mistakes. Here's this flare sequence, and this is scissors. Now sitting up for his dismount, traveling out of the end of the horse, right up to a handstand pirouette.
Now, I would have to say, comparing that to the Soviet pommel horse routine that we just saw before the break, it was not as strong. Even though he fell off, he came back and I think had a stronger finish than Kirksey did.
Correct, and in a way, the Soviet almost had to. He had packed it full of so much difficulty that he had to go all out just to be able to make it through some of those skills. But to give credit to Patrick, it's still a very difficult routine. And he finished nice and strong. Now, he just banged his leg the first time, and he kind of sat down on the pommel.
He might have gotten away with it because the judges are all on the other side.
It really looked like he regained his composure, but then once his right hand slipped off that horse, there's just nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do.
Tough break. On the brighter side, here's Phoebe Mills on the beam.
This is the pass that she fell off on in the American Cup. Does a back handspring, back layout step out into another back layout step out, and she's right on target.
Cat Kirksey scored 9.0.
Phoebe dismounted with a double back flip.
57.65.
Just nails the landing.
Combined score for
Good
that
high
pair.
lift, tucks it around,
And in just a
zeroes in on the
moment,
ground.
we'll continue with our competitors who have chosen balance beam and horizontal bar.
Here you can see the total, 57.65, with two more pairs yet to compete. Her score was 9.85 on the beam. His was a 9.0 for the pommel horse. Of course, he had the fall. Now the team from the Soviet Union ready to compete. This is Olesya Dudnik. She too has opted to compete on the balance beam for her third and final event. Now as a team, they need 19.55 to tie Mills and Kirksey.
Very difficult mount. She mounted with the round off onto the board and then did a back layout step out. Beautiful aerial cartwheel into two back layout step outs. Just an incredibly difficult tumbling sequence. It's ready for another pass. A round off layout full twist on the beam. Clearly one of the most difficult skills that are being performed in the world on balance beam.
She did it like she was on the floor.
People always wonder, how do these girls learn skills like that on a beam? And in reality, they learn it on the floor. They have maybe a piece of tape that's 4 inches wide. They'll do it on the floor, then do it on a beam that might be just a few inches off the ground to give them confidence. And finally, of course, they can do it on the high beam. Just that when you miss, it's a lot harder fall than when you miss on a piece of tape.
Just keep raising the beam.
Sitting for dismount, round off back handspring, layout triple twist. That's one of the most difficult balance beam I've seen. Sure to get a very good score.
Remember, Phoebe got a 9.85 for her routine, which included a small bobble. This certainly was a very difficult routine by Dudnik.
And her partner has chosen horizontal bar.
Vitali Marinich is going to compete in his third apparatus on the high bar.
This is Vitali Marinich.
And Marinich chose this for a reason, because he is spectacular on horizontal bar. He does two skills that really most of us have never seen before. We knew they could and had been done, but when you see it back to back, it's just incredible. First, he sets up by doing a straddle pike Gaylord flip, named of course after our USA gymnast Mitch Gaylord, who barely caught it. Now here's this. It's a reverse hack right into a front flip catch, into a full pirouette. He did not do that in the American Cup. This is just a wild routine. Beautiful inverted giants. Now he's going to set up for his dismount. Usually he does a full twisting double layout. There it is. Oh, took a hop. I really wanted to see him stick that because I thought it could have been a 10.
What a set. Marinich smiling to the crowd. Much different expression than after he bobbled his pommel horse routine and finished with an 8.95.
We've got to appreciate the margin of error there is just so minute. This is a reverse heck, but instead of going backwards over the bar, he cuts it short, does a front flip, and then reaches his hand under and catches it just like a Gaylord flip.
Now that defied gravity, what he did there.
Right into a full pirouette. Doesn't stop there.
I don't know how he got back into that bar. That was a move.
Boy, that just makes it fun to watch. He dismounts by doing a full twisting double layout. He does the twist nice and early, very crisp. Gets that twist over with. You see him open up his chest so that he can see the ground very, very early. Then he just says, bullseye, right on the floor.
An interesting thing has happened in the pommel horse. Pat Kirksey, who fell off in this round, received a 9.0. He received a 9.85 in the last round. He too fell off, but I thought his routine was more difficult. But anyway, it's the third round now. She received a 9.90 for her balance beam routine, which was very, very difficult. You saw their combined total of 1975. His high bar routine netted a 9.85. We'll be back. Welcome back to our third and final pair in this mixed pairs competition. It is Wendy Bruce and Li Jing. Wendy Bruce, like the two women before her, has opted for the balance beam as her third and final event. She is teamed with China's Li Jing, which is why you are seeing another USA competitor in the third and final round. Right now, our leaders are the team from the Soviet Union with a total of 57.85. In second, Mills and Kirksey with 57.65. But of course, Wendy Bruce and Li Jing have yet to compete.
This is a good event for Wendy, though, and she chose it last.
Now the score's ahead of her on this event, and this is one that we can truly compare. Phoebe Mills got a 9.85, Dudnik got a 9.9. It's tough to beat.
Well, she certainly has her work cut out for her, but she's very strong. I don't know if she really planned on being in this position in this competition right now. If she can nail this routine, and if Li Jing can do a great job in his routine, they could be the first mixed pair, as I said, to win this title. Hasn't been done before.
Combined total that they need to tie is 19.1. Which kind of comes out to 9.5s for each of them.
So far, no problems. The front flip, once again, very, very difficult. You can't see the beam until it hits you. It's always comforting when it hits your feet instead of something else. Dismount. A round off, double back, one step. It's a good routine, should score well.
A very solid routine in light of the fact that as a team they only need 19.1 to tie. The question is, was it better than 9.5, and how much better than 9.5 can he do on the
Let's all
horizontal
watch.
bar?
Li Jing.
Well, it seems that the meet's going to just depend on this single performance, and he can do it. Very, very difficult. He does another variation of the Gaylord flip. You have to give credit to Mitch Gaylord for coming up with this skill, because not very many gymnasts really even try this skill. Many other skills have been imitated time and time again, but not the Gaylord flip. It's very blind, very, very difficult. Here it comes. He does it in the pike position, catches it, beautifully done, right into a stalder. Here comes another set of double release move. There's a reverse hecht right into a ginger.
And I think we're looking at our first place team, if that's scored as well as it deserves.
If he lands this dismount correctly and stays on target, we've got some champions. A double tissue double layout. Little step, I think that'll do it.
Li Jing from China and Wendy Bruce, look at her face. She did a solid job, and he did a great job. I wouldn't want to be a judge right now. This is one of the tougher finishes in these mixed pairs.
Now here comes the Gaylord flip. It's in pike position. Gets a lot of rotation. It takes him up and over the bar. You can see those hands just out there like radar saying, where is that bar? And he grabs it.
Now again to tie, they each needed 9.5.
Now here is his reversed hecht right into a flyaway with a half turn.
9.60.
He just can't do much better than that.
Again, Wendy Bruce on the balance beam. Now her score's already been announced. It's 9.60.
It looked like her feet were a little bit off to the side on that punch. Certainly didn't affect her dismount, though.
9.6 her score. He received a 9.85, and according to our calculations, they've won it. 58.2 is the total that we have, but of course we have to check our math to make sure. We'll be back with the final standings, but first these messages from Jacksonville, Florida. Our official scorekeeper has confirmed our numbers. Wendy Bruce and Li Jing are the 1989 McDonald's International Mixed Pairs champions. Their total, 58.20. The Soviets finished second. Phoebe Mills and Patrick Kirksey of the USA finished third. Right now, let's go to Peter Vidmar.
I'm here with our International Mixed Pairs champion, Wendy. How did you feel going into that last event?
I was excited. I thought if I could hit it, we might have a chance now. I was confident. I had a little
Were you nervous?
Not really. I was kind of just, doing my routine.
What's your next plans for the next coming months?
Well, there's the USA USSR meet that I'm going to, and the ESPN meet I'm going to.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Li Jing, is this your very good friend, Hao Pan Yo?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, congratulations.
Peter Vidmar showing off his Chinese Hao Pan Yo, very good friend in Chinese. We'll be back with our top winners in each event in a moment. Welcome back, and although individual honors were not part of the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs format, we thought you'd like to see who would have finished first in each apparatus. We'll begin with women's vaulting, where Phoebe Mills was the top performer. On the uneven parallel bars, it was Hungary's Henriette Onodi. On the balance beam, from the Soviet Union, Olesya Dudnik. And Phoebe Mills again would have captured a second gold, but this time with a tie with Onodi, who too would have captured a second gold medal. Moving over to the men's 6 events, they too began on the floor exercise with Wes Suter, the top performer at 9.6. But the pommel horse was trouble.
A lot of problems from pommel horse. In fact, the 2 most important routines of the meet were the blown routines on pommel horse by Patrick Kirksey and also by the Soviet Marinich.
Moving along now to the still rings, Vitali Marinich rallied with a 9.60 to claim first place. On the vault, it was Li Jing from China.
And it was a spectacular, new, and innovative vault, similar to the girls' vault, that round-off entry.
On the parallel bars, again, Li Jing, 9.70. And on the horizontal bar, for the 3rd time, Li Jing from China, this time with a 9.85, but also with a tie with Vitali Marinich.
2 of the most spectacular routines of the entire competition.
There you saw the best performances of the 1989 McDonald's International Mixed Pairs. We'll be back in just a moment. Congratulations to Wendy Bruce and Li Jing, the McDonald's International Mixed Pairs champions of 1989. First place score, 58.2, followed by the Soviet Union, 57.85, and then the team from the USA of Phoebe Mills and Patrick Kirksey, 57.65.
It was quite close in this competition. I didn't expect it to be that close. However, you have to realize that everybody in this competition is doing their best events, and so therefore you don't leave too much room for error. I didn't expect some of the mistakes that I saw, but some of the mistakes are really critical and crucial. But we still had a great competition, and the best routines were saved for the end.
As typical, the tough part were balance beam and pommel horse, and they proved to be the difference between first and second place. Well, the new names and faces of international gymnastics have been introduced to you tonight. Let's see how many stick around till 1992. Today's coverage has been brought to you by the good time and great taste of McDonald's. For Peter Vidmar, I'm Leandra Riley saying so long from the 1989 McDonald's International Mixed Pairs.